nostalgia for the CEO role? I mean, was it something that was a difficult decision for you? Was it something that you had to think hard about?
Yeah, I had to think hard. I had to think hard about taking the CEO role in the first place 2 years ago, and that was for a long time. I thought I didn't want to be CEO of a venture funding company, and then I thought it was the right decision, and I enjoy doing it, but it's kind of a sucky job.
Hey, I'm the CEO of a venture-backed company. I love it.
Good for you. Some people do.
I know Dick's out there somewhere. I'm going,
I think his hair is falling out.
That's
fault.
So is mine.
So is mine.
Yeah. So that transition to product focus, I do actually want to ask something very specifically. How do you pick the people that you offer up as people to potentially follow? Because, at least in my case, I found it to be extremely useful.
Oh, the module. Yeah. It's really cool. I don't know. We have scientists and math people who do that, but
well, it actually doesn't feel like science and math. It feels sort of human.
Yeah, there was a lot of iteration on the algorithm. The obvious thing is to do a collaborative filtering sort of thing. Say, you follow a bunch of people and I follow a bunch of people and they overlap in this way, and where are the ways they don't overlap, and let's recommend those vice versa. And that's a start, but we look at a whole bunch of signals. We have actually a reputation score for every user based on...
Are you ever going to make that public?
We struggled with that. I think it'd be really cool to make it public. The problem is then it's kind of like making PageRank public, and it'll be a game.
PageRank started as a public paper.
Fair enough.
But now there are thousands of signals beyond PageRank.
Right. So we might, but it needs to evolve quite a bit more first. But that's one of many signals we look at, as well as who different people follow. But we found at first that when we did that, we recommended sort of unexciting or uninteresting, like people you knew about and probably weren't following for a reason, because they're the most popular people. Of course, you're going to run into them. So we had to introduce more surprise and randomness. And at this point, it's way beyond what I understand, but it works pretty well. It's getting better, and of course, we measure the results and try to improve it.
Right. Of course. I want to ask you, and I think this probably will get into a little bit this particular point, because Twitter has shifted a lot in the last year, in particular, because you're starting new monetization streams, which are now being delivered not just on the domain, but out into the ecosystem of third-party developers. Because there were so many people that excited about the openness and the basic sort of decentralized approach that Twitter initially took to its own service. You have a very strong developer community. You've had to negotiate a rather treacherous path to sort of re-centralizing some of the services of Twitter, the user interface of Twitter, the experience of Twitter. And that's pissed some people off. And some people who have invested their careers or their resources or both in building stuff that then you build into the platform.
Right.
I remember asking Mark this question 3 years ago. But if you're a developer and you're putting your heart and soul into something, how do you know if you're doing something that isn't going to become a feature of Twitter and you're going to be kind of left holding the back?
Right. Well, it's a complicated answer. And we've learned...
We have all 11 minutes and 13 seconds.
All right. We've learned a lot about having an ecosystem and working with third-party developers, and we've certainly screwed up a lot of that. And partially that's because we didn't set out to be a platform company. And we added an API onto Twitter, as a lot of companies do early on, because we thought, well, that'll be neat. We don't know what will happen, but it'll be nice to plug Twitter into other services. And but that's different than really developing a platform. A platform, you need to really think through in a way that's going to provide lots of opportunities for many companies to win, and it's going to be, there's often tension between platform providers and developers, but I think well-designed platforms are those that offer lots of opportunities for winning businesses to be built on them. And we aspire to be a platform company, but I don't think we've really done that yet. So there are some opportunities and some developers have done well, but the way that I look at what's happened is we kind of launched Twitter as call it a Model T type of product. It was very basic, and it was popular, and it got people excited, and this swarm of developers came in and started making it better in the aftermarket, which was fantastic. Right? And it served users, and it served us, and it helped us sell more Model Ts. And that meant all of our efforts went to increasing production. But the thing that happened over about 20 years of making the same Model T is they started to get beat by GM because their cars had to evolve.
Right.
And early on we had a theory that, well, that's great, that if you want a radio for your car, you just get it elsewhere. But that we realized wasn't really serving users as much as we should, and we were going to get beat if we just stayed there. And I showed this video at our developer conference about 6 months ago when I was explaining why we bought Tweety and made an official Twitter for iPhone app. It was because people simply weren't finding these awesome Twitter clients that were in the App Store because they weren't called Twitter.
Right.
And we couldn't sign up for Twitter on it. And we realized, well, it's crazy. We can't be a modern internet company without our own mobile apps.
Right. And so it's clear, I think when that move was made, pretty much anyone who was developing a mobile app for Twitter stopped, said, okay, we're going to move on to something else. But I think it keeps, I think folks want to know what's safe, right? Today you announced an analytics product, and there are lots of developers who are doing analytics products. And I imagine that you're doing so much, and that there's lots more that could be done, and you could consume the GNIT fire hose and do an analytics product that uses pattern recognition from that and so on. But what is safe? Are photos safe?
I don't know.
That's a fair answer.
Are photos
and
safe?
It's much shorter than saying I don't know for a minute. And never saying I don't know, which I've heard on this stage.
Our answer about photos is the same as it was a few months ago, which was a lot of people share photos on Twitter. With new Twitter, we made the consumption experience better. And for certain providers, we show the photo right on the page if you're using the web interface. And we think there's more improvements to be made because our goal is to help people share and discover what's happening right now in the world, and the photos are very useful for that. And so we think we need to create a better photo experience, but we haven't determined exactly what that is.
Right. Got it. Guys, please come up to the microphones so you can ask questions, and we'll get to you and make sure we have time for you, so come on up. Now, let me pivot for a minute here and ask you about another theme of the entire conference, which is finance. We had Yuri Milner here, and it's very clear that you are his desired fourth company. Facebook, Groupon, Zynga, Twitter. I'm sure in the secondary market he's already active in your shares. Are you now, or will you soon, be considering, or do you need a very large round from a well-heeled Russian financier?
Well, that's a great company to be considered in. Do you really think you're gonna?
No, I really don't.
Right.
No, but
we have a lot of money in the bank.
you have a lot of money in the bank.
Yeah.
But you always want to eat dinner when your hors d'oeuvres are being passed. There's Yuri with a platter.
I've heard that.
Okay. We have questions from the audience. Is that Ben? I can't see. Hey.
Ben Marshall.
Hi, Ben.
You haven't addressed the ecosystem very well, but I'm just wondering if you could speak from Mr. Chris Dixon to actually Twitter analytics. You'll see zero smart money investing in Twitter. Doesn't affect me or my investments. I just think it's a bad move. And he's focusing on that and the developer ecosystem, which he says you're tweeting at. Do you have
answer to Twitter.
So we launched, I think the point he's referring to is we launched to a very few users analytics dashboardy type thing to help them figure out which tweets are getting the most response. As I said before, I think we need to keep improving Twitter. We need to keep evolving Twitter, and we need to also provide more opportunities for developers to add value. Everybody wants to be a platform. I don't think we've built a great platform yet. We desire to build a great platform, but the answer to that, and one that serves users and developers, is not just not doing things. We can't just okay, everybody else will take care of stuff, because it just doesn't work. We actually tried that for a couple years and it didn't really work. And since we moved into mobile client space, for example, our mobile usage has exploded. And so we're going to keep making our products better, and we're also going to look for ways that third-party developers can add a lot more value. But that's it. We're not going to make our product worse because other people said, you haven't done that yet, so I own it.
There's always this push-pull, and we asked Mark earlier, what areas were safe, and he kind of indicated that gaming was safe. He reached the top with that. Are there any areas in the ecosystem that you seem to clearly think, we're not probably going to roll that into?
There are a bunch, but I probably don't want to go on the record saying anything. I doubt we build games, but
One never knows.
I don't even know if Twitter games work.
Well, Angry Birds, shouldn't that be a Twitter game? At least Chris Dixon seemed like one.
Do you have anything on the near roadmap on your product roadmap for Twitter? So analytics today, anything coming in the next quarter?
Yes. Well, I'm not going to tell very specific things. We launched a new iPhone app yesterday, which has push, which is awesome. So you can stay abreast of the tweets that matter most to you. And I can tell you in general what we're working on, which is relevance is a big theme for us. So our goal is to really give people the most valuable information for them at wherever they are. And I think looking back over the last couple of days, one thing that I noticed is we're all, especially with the new companies that are launching, a lot of them are focused on what's the most important information. I think that's a signal we're all being we have this treasure of too much information, and that's very empowering and helps us all, but it's clearly becoming more and more of a problem. There's just too much. And our goal with Twitter, we've never measured things like time on site, because our goal is really to optimize for return on attention and help people pay attention to the stuff that really matters to them. And so that's going to be a big theme for us for the future, is how you get more out of this. There's 100 million tweets a day. Which ones matter to you?
So if you were to start to develop a relevance algorithm that could be applied to tweets in the flow of what I follow, then you might see the more relevant ones resurfaced higher up.
And we've done some experiments.
Not just a timeline, but a timeline plus a signal of relevance, such that I see more relevant.
We don't want you to limit the number of sources of information that you want to follow and then feel like you're missing the most important stuff.
Right.
And we've done some experiments with this in search. For example, we have top tweets.
Top tweets in search.
And so we're playing with that. Figuring out relevance in real time is a non-trivial problem that no one's really done before. So we're working on that, but it's inevitable that we're going to focus on that a lot more.
Right on. Over here.
Walter, Airlock. Question is a bit more personal or philosophical.